and welcome to episode 466 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' bi-weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Zach Wilkerson, and I will be your host today. And today we are here to confess our sins. Games or series that we haven't played before. And if you've been a long-time listener, you might be familiar with that. But before we get into the concept, let's introduce the sinners who are coming to the confessional today. Starting with you, Matt Wardell.
Forgive me, Zach, for I have sinned.
No. And Paul Skevington.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to expose my horrible gaming gaps.
And Lucy Gray.
Yes, Domine, Patrius.
I need some wine now. Luckily, I'm in the right spot for it. Anyway, so as you have probably surmised, listeners, we are here today to do the fourth RPG confessional episode. This is a concept that started all the way back in 2016, which is almost 10 years ago. Retro Encounter just recently surpassed the 10-year mark on how long it's been around, which makes me feel old since I've been listening almost since the beginning. And so the first one was in 2016. We had another one in 2018. I was on one back in 2021, and I decided it's time to bring it back. So basically the idea here is, first of all, let's be very clear, listeners, we're going to have some fun with this. We're going to call it the confessional. We'll confess our sins, but there's no gatekeeping here. I don't have a lot of patience for that. Sometimes people are like, how can you talk about RPGs if you haven't played these 600 RPGs? Like, give me a break, dude. Seriously. We can talk about RPGs because we like them. That's at the beginning and the end. But, you know, there are always like those games, those white whales, those big gaps in our resume that we're like, you know, we really would like to have played those. And this is all love. You know, we're trying to encourage people to play these games, to try them out. But that's what we're going to do today, except for Lucy. Lucy definitely needs to feel bad for the game she hasn't played.
Excuse me.
So yeah, well, we're just going to go through. We have for each panelist, we have 2 games or series. We got some big ones today. Not naming any names, but we got some big ones today, especially for those of us who live in Japan. Not naming any names. Who wants to get us started? Who wants to confess their sin for an RPG or RPG series that they haven't played? They feel like they really should have played at this point.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have never played Kingdom Hearts.
So I will say this before you get started here. On Retro Encounter, I'm not sure that's a sin. Because we all know that Mike Solosi, an avowed hater of Kingdom Hearts for many years, although he did play Kingdom Hearts 2 pretty recently for the pod, and he enjoyed it. But anyway, talk to us about why you haven't ever played Kingdom Hearts.
I fully admit, by the time Kingdom Hearts came onto my radar, you know, I was like, oh, I like Disney things. I love RPGs. I love Final Fantasy. I was like, oh, maybe. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just read up a little on the lore. And I tried reading the lore. And I got more and more confused. And I was like, I don't know if I can handle this much lore in this little bit amount of time. And there were so many arguments of what game to start with first. And there were all these like mini games in between. And I'm just like, look, I have my plate full with just the regular Final Fantasy lore and the trying to keep up with the games that I've missed in that series. And I was just like, that and the shoes. I just can't stand the oversized shoes.
And the belts. The Nomura belts.
It's just like, I can stand certain fashion crimes, but those were just too much for me.
Yeah, so I, you know, until maybe 2017, I would have been in the same boat as you, Lucy. And I understand everything you're saying because Kingdom Hearts lore is absurd and stupid. And I actually get a little annoyed when people try to make sense of it. Because I'm like, I don't think you really get the point. Like the lore here doesn't really matter. It's all nonsense. It's all silly. Because you could play the first one And the first one's got some weird combat issues, but the first one is the most Disney of them. So if I'm going to recommend a starting point, just give the first one a shot. It really, I think it definitely pulls in the Disney and the Final Fantasy probably better than any of the rest of them until the lore starts to overwhelm it, sort of in the back half of 2, and then as it goes forward. But there's some really good ones after that. Kingdom Hearts 2 I think has some of the best action RPG combat on the PS2, and I mean that sincerely. Like, I think that it is super fun, especially at a high level. Kingdom Hearts 3 is total nonsense, but like it's just so fun to play around with the systems. Birth by Sleep legitimately has a pretty good story that's pretty understandable. All the side games are kind of whatever. You can read a quick summary. Like, I have started Chain of Memories. I've watched videos for some others. I'm like, nope, not doing that. But my general advice is just like let the nonsense wash over you. Just let it happen. And you just sit there and you're like, huh, this game really is taking itself very seriously right now. That's kind of fun. Oh look, Donald Duck just cast a Zeta Flare. That's really cool. I don't know why he gets to cast it, but that's pretty cool. And that's sort of my advice with Kingdom Hearts, but I'm not sure if other panelists here have experience with the nonsense that is Kingdom Hearts lore.
Pretty similar, except even more recently did I embark on a Kingdom Hearts journey, and I even did play Chain of Memories, and I actually liked it, even though I can see why people get a bit worked up about it, as you have to handle all these card mechanics while trying to do the same fighting that you were doing in the first one. So I can see how that put some people off, and how people who didn't experience it were a little bit confused when they started Kingdom Hearts 2 and everything was just completely different, and assumed that you knew all this lore that had been dropped in this weird side game previously. I'm going to start this in a bit of a controversial way, I suppose, and say that I'm not even entirely sure. I mean, I do like the series, and I'm not all the way through. Yeah, I think I'm up to Birth by Sleep, and I've kind of ground to a halt there for a while. But I'm not even entirely sure that I would pillory someone for not having started it yet. Maybe for those. I mean, it is a great action JRPG. No arguments there. But yeah, kind of the narrative and lore and story often is quite important to me. And as you say, kind of bewildering Russian doll style way that it's approached in these games. Whilst I would agree with you, Zach. Maybe it's not the most crucial thing, but certainly feels, I don't know, in places it does feel like it's supposed to be the most crucial thing. And it doesn't.
That's what makes it so
work.
funny.
Yeah.
It's very, very earnest, right? Like everything about it is just like I was like the perfect age when this game came out. I feel like this series, and like I love 1 and 2. And then like Birth by Sleep is pretty fun too, but like everything else I'm just like, it's like you said like very well, Zach, like it just like the latter half of 2 just dips into like this kind of BS stuff about like every time that like I've replayed the series many times, and every time like Goofy starts talking about like like the nobody's a fragment of your soul, I just reach for my phone and I'm like, okay, it's time to like skip the the cutscene and just get back to like the episodic gameplay. But like I like the atmosphere of it and the music of it, and like now that's kind of steeped in nostalgia. But I don't know, I mean, relatively recently I replayed 1 and 2, which I've done like a fair amount of times, and then I also replayed the Metal Gear Solid trilogy, right? And I'm like, wow, one of these is actually digestible.
Oh, okay.
My point being that like Kingdom Hearts makes Metal Gear's story look like brilliant and digestible and concise. So I'm like, this all makes perfect sense. The Lolly Lule Lo, and compared to all the like organizations and the 4 or 5 fragments of Sora's soul. Like I have no idea even.
I think it's 17. Get it right.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
God.
Another sin.
I also just like the fact that even though I haven't played it, unfortunately, because I have so many friends who are into it, I get these random bits of knowledge that just stick to me. Like the fact that Donald Duck is the second most powerful wizard ever in a Final Fantasy series.
Yeah, he gets to cast that Zeta Flare, at the end of 3. It's very cool. There's no reason for it, but it's very cool. And he's also useless in battle, but it's also very cool.
Your
Make sure you
only
turn off
healer
items.
will refuse to heal you until you're lying
Yep.
dead at the feet of your enemies. And then,
And that's like the one constant of all things Kingdom Hearts. Donald will not heal you.
And Goofy
And if you
just
give
flying by on
them
the stream.
items, they just use items like when you take 1 damage and they burn through them in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The
So
AI
frustrating.
is consistently horrible in Kingdom Hearts games.
I'm a staunch defender of like, what's it called, the rhythm game that came out like a few years ago.
What?
Anyway, Melody
You're
of
the
Memory?
first and
Yeah.
only.
Like
Wow.
I honestly think if you want to like understand that whole series without playing through like a lot of the BS, like that's a great way to play everything, and like you can enjoy the music. I platinum that game. Like I really got into it. I don't even remember the name of it. Melody of Memory or something. Memory of Melody.
But Matt,
Yeah,
I
I don't
have
know.
no rhythm. I'm a white woman.
Oh.
Like, I'm not any good at theater rhythm. I'm certainly not good at bad theater rhythm.
Then Lucy,
which is
boy,
Kingdom Hearts.
boy, do I have a under the sea world for you to enjoy. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
Kingdom
God.
Hearts 2 Atlantica. That was made for you.
Atlantica's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Are you thinking of Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2?
I think no, 1, it's horrible.
No.
The rhythm game is better than that underwater crap.
No way. The rhythm game that involves pressing A as a circle slowly and like, tightens on the X button or whatever, the A button. Yeah. Maybe I don't like this series.
I would definitely piggyback on what you're saying, Matt, about the atmosphere there, because that's something that draws me in a lot as a sort of perpetual semi-goth since youth would be the all the Halloween Town stuff, which is great to see whenever it pops up.
Oh yeah, always the
Yeah,
highlight.
can't get enough.
Very hot
Jack
topic.
Skeleton, all that stuff.
That
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shall not discuss of my younger days when I spent way too much time in the Hot Topic, wanting to be a
and
goth.
then you walk next door to Spencer's. That was just a great day. It's a great day.
Sunshine City.
My honest advice is, give 1 a try for 5-6 hours. If you don't like it, I'm sure that Mike and Hillary probably have a copy of it you can borrow, and just give it a quick shot. But you really don't have to. It's okay. I absolve you of your sin with 6 Hayas and 1 full playthrough of Final Fantasy VI.
Thank you, Father.
That's a big series, but again, it's not great. But Matt, why don't you tell us one of your sins?
Alrighty. Well, honestly, there are so many series that like I've only relatively recently like dipped into like 1 or 2 entries, like including the Mana series, including Star Ocean. But one that I have like still zero clue about, and I actually didn't do any research before the episode just so I can like actually learn something, is the Tales of ... series. I have no clue how many of these there are. I barely know when it began, and God help me, when will it end? Does anybody play Tales of something? That's the end of my spiel. I don't know.
Well, Paul and I recently talked about a Tales of game together on Retro Encounter, and
We did.
we talked about Tales of Grace's F. Similar to Kingdom Hearts, I'm not necessarily going to tell you that I think the Tales series is essential. Now, my wife she can't hear me, but she would be screaming at me in the other room because she's played them all. Alana just absolutely loves the Tales series. Except for, actually, she hasn't played Arise, and I've played Arise. The Tales series is what I would just call like a solid like B-tier RPG series. It is the most anime, always. That's just like sort of even more than the action combat. I'd say that it's very anime. So Tales of started all the way back in like I think 95 with Tales of Fantasia. It was Japan only. We only got it through, I won't even say the name of the amateur group that localized it, but we got it through that. And then like it sort of built up momentum, but sort of the key defining features of the Tales of series early on was it was like inspired by a fighting game. So if you've played Star Ocean was actually like sort of split from Tales of, like the development team that worked on the original. One of them moved over to Star Ocean, and like some of them did, and then the others stuck with the Tales game. So like they share a lot of the same DNA. So a lot of what you see in Star Ocean is going to be similar. Star Ocean's a little more sci-fi than Tales games, but Tales games are, again, they are extremely anime. They're known for like these big anime cutscenes in the opening. Even like the Super Nintendo version had that. I think the cart had to be bigger because of it. So they have a lot of that. So if you like anime tropes, Tales is good.
And I
If you
don't.
like, yeah, exactly. So if you like good characterization is what these games are a lot of times about. Tales of Vesperia is oftentimes known for that. I think the Xillia cast is pretty good. And the action combat is relatively simple a lot of the time, but it sort of has evolved and changed over time, where you sort of had like this 2D almost fighting game style, and then it became like 3D, but you could only walk in a straight line. Whereas now with Tales of Arise, it feels like a full blown like action thing that almost doesn't feel like a Tales game in terms of its combat. But I do think that when I'm in the mood for a Tales game, like I'm gonna have a good time with the Tales game. Most of the time, the combat's pretty dumb. Actually, Tales of Grace's F, I think, which is the one Paul and I talked about, has
Mm.
I think the deepest and richest combat and the most difficult combat. But it also has one of the weakest stories, in my opinion. Um, whereas something like I've never played Tales of the Abyss. I hear that one's got a really, really strong story. Vesperia has really good characters, but it just like it goes down easy. It's simple. I think if you're going to start with one, I would recommend either Abyss or Vesperia personally, or maybe even Arise. Even though Arise just goes way off the deep end in the last 10 hours, like, and then the DLC just like leans into how horrible the ending is. But yeah, that's my experience with the Tale series and my advice.
Have we played Tales of Symphonia? Because that's the one that, like, when I was growing up, like everyone with a GameCube was always going on about that game, and I was like what is this? Like back then, like you would have been publicly shamed or flogged for liking anime, so that was like, what, like, why is this suddenly so popular? But yeah, that's the one that I
Which
think
is
I
ironic
oh
because that was the one Tales of game that I've played. I haven't played it all the way through, but I picked it up because I was a fan of the Oh My Goddess creator, and he was the one who did all the artwork for the Tales of Symphonia series. And it is very much anime, and it was very much the game that a lot of people picked up when um, we were the weirdos in the anime club because it was just it was an easy segue in to the Tales of series.
right, yeah, like it seems to me like maybe it's just like my age again, like that's like the big one that people always talk about, I feel like, but I've heard negative things about the recent remaster, so I did pick
Yeah.
that up for like $5 or something, but I'm
Well,
hesitant
I
now.
it runs only the native GameCube version runs at 60 FPS. All the rest run at 30. A lot of them run jankily. I've actually never played Symphonia, but I think that one of the reasons that it became so big was because a lot of Nintendo kids were like, I was a Nintendo kid growing up, and then like you got to the N64 and the GameCube, and like, where are all the RPGs? Well, on the GameCube, that was one of the few RPGs. The GameCube also has the advantage of actually having a couple of good RPGs, unlike the N64. So I think it's part of why it exploded. It's sort of, I think that's where the 3D battles started as well, and it just had like sort of a bigger story, and I think it leaned more into some of that character stuff. I think it kind of created the template for the series going forward. But I think that most
Mm.
people would say that it is not one of the strongest ones. I don't have any
Oh.
strong desire to go play it, for example.
And before, when you were talking about the 3D gameplay, are we talking like ease gameplay similar to that, or
No,
no?
it's well in most of the 3D ones except for Arise, you actually like there will be like enemies on the map and you'll run into the enemy and then it'll transition into a battle screen, and it's just sort of like this like sort of circle arena that you can either, in some of the later games you can free run around, but in like Symphonia you can only walk in one line and it's towards the enemy. That's it. So it's like sort of faux 3D. It's a little
uh,
janky and a little weird, where you're sort of mixing in like these like attack combos into like these super moves. So it always has that fighting game DNA in it until Arise again. Arise again sort of goes almost full, just straight up action RPG, whereas
hmm.
the fighting game DNA is still in it. So yeah, it's just a little different.
Okay, that sounds kind of cool. And
Yeah.
the other thing I kind of know is the composer is Motoi Sakuraba, I think. Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
But Sakuraba gets made fun of for one reason and one reason only, is because all the Tales soundtracks sound the same. I actually think that Sakuraba's like a pretty good composer, but like
Yeah.
all the Sakuraba stuff for the Tales series sounds like kind of samey. Maybe it was just because the most recent one I played was Tales of Grace's F, and I thought the music in that game was not very good.
I've got relatively, I think, as I've discussed before, relatively limited experience with Tales, having apart from the obviously reviewing and discussing the Tales of Grace's F, and my initial exposure was sort of getting about 50 hours into Tales of Zestiria, and then stopping because of a horrible water temple with the thing I just hate in any video, especially JRPGs, like teleporting around the place, teleporting to random places and trying to figure out where I am. That's enough to.
If you don't like that, have I got a
game.
game for you? Tales of Grace's F.
I know.
The torture of the water temples.
But I do, yeah, sort of piggybacking on what you're saying, Zach, about it being sort of a B tier list. It's a funny thing, isn't it? A series that's been around for so long, kind of reminiscent of the way that Ease has been with us since like the 1980s. I think Tales of is a little bit later, isn't it, in the 90s? But how it's not managing to break into the mainstream, and except maybe slightly more with Tales of Arise, not becoming that essential experience. Maybe up to a Tales of Arise. I'm wondering if you think that in a similar way to like Dragon Quest, is there a sense that, because I think I get the feeling that Tales of fans are kind of quite often are looking for for a fairly traditional experience as well, or familiar experience, and whether or not that approach may be holding them back a little bit. Although I understand that Rise is quite a departure in itself.
I mean, I think that Arise was controversial amongst a lot of Tales fans. I actually, again, Alana hasn't played it, and she's played every single Tales game that is available in English, I believe, until now. And so I do think it's a bit of a departure. It sort of like straddles this middle ground too, where it still has like sort of that anime aesthetic, and it tries to have more mature storytelling in some ways, but it to me it it doesn't have the courage of its convictions. And it does like some both sidesism towards the end that I find really gross. One last thing I want to say is actually have sort of a controversial starting point that I'd recommend, because I actually think that Tales of Berseria, which is technically a prequel to Zestiria, but I've never played Zestiria and you don't need to, is actually a great starting point. Because it's still like it's the second most recent Tales game, even though it came out like in 2016. It's pretty old at this point. It's very traditional in terms of the Tales experience, but I think the story in that game is actually legitimately very good, at least for a video game. And it's a little bit darker. The combat is extremely breakable if you want it to be. So like you don't have to struggle with it. Like I think it was actually the first Tales game I played, and I had to turn it up to like very hard to not like kill like bosses in like 2 seconds. But I think that the storytelling is actually pretty mature. There are some good surprises in it. I think that it's generally well seen in the Tales community, but I think it's a little underrated. And I think it's the sort of game that you would enjoy, Matt. So if I'm going to give you a personal recommendation of a game that I've played, I think Tales of Berseria is a good starting point.
Maybe I'll start there. The one last thing like about this series, like Paul, you were saying like it's struggling to like find its feet with like a larger audience. I feel like whereas Final Fantasy, for example, like it's numbered and people have that initial barrier of like, do I have to play them all? And to get the story, and people go, no, they're all separate. The fact that like all the names, like you're listing, no offense to you at all, Zach, like when you're like, oh well, Tales of like Badibudu is the prequel to like Zippy Zoppy, and I'm like, oh no, like I'm already losing track of everything. It's really hard to digest from the outside, and it makes me feel like when I talk to like my students about Star Wars or something like that, I'm like, what, you haven't seen like Attack of the Clones? Oh, it's awful. Like, yeah, but it's it redeemed itself with Return of the Jedi. Like it's a little bit impenetrable.
That Dooku
marketing.
fight's pretty cool though. Let's be honest.
Oh, people were
Yoda
chanting Yoda in the movie theater when I was but a lad.
Fantastic.
Are you sure they were chanting Yoda and not just singing the wonderful Weird Al Yankovic song?
Yoda, yeah. So that maybe that's the problem, that like maybe they should just go ahead and like go back and name them retroactively, like Tales of blank 1. You know what I mean? Or that doesn't work either, but.
I see what you're saying. There isn't a massive degree, certainly outside of our circles, of visibility for it. I think if I were to talk to any of my non hardcore RPG gaming friends, they just wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about if I mentioned any of them. So there's definitely something there, something around this distinctiveness or the branding or something that's not quite breaking through. It's very few people, I think, describe any individual title as a particularly essential experience. I think at least you don't hear it talked about, I think, quite as much. I know you do have some hardcore fans, obviously, and I really enjoyed my time with Tales of Grace's F, but yeah, I can see. I think this is one more than Kingdom Hearts, so I would encourage you, Matt, to give one of them a go. Even though I haven't a huge amount of experience myself, I think they're a fun time. They're enjoyable. They're not going to break you down emotionally or anything like that. It's something to tick off the list, and to when you need a break between those heart-wrenching narratives or extremely challenging gameplay experiences. I think maybe fitting one of these Tales games in would be a good thing to do.
I think I will do that. I'll start with Fantasia and Berseria. Wrote that down.
I mean, Fantasia is the first one, so that's gonna be a very different experience. But anyway,
or no, sorry, Symphonia.
Symphonia.
See, I'm already doing it. Symphonia. There needs to
Did
be
you
like
get the names right, Matt? I just said them. Come on.
There needs to be like an Animaniacs like listing of like them in chronological order, like.
Or like the periodic table song.
Yeah.
So, the public at large may not have heard of Matt's sin. My students, certainly, I could ask 10,000 students that I've had in my career, and they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But they would all know the next one, even if they are too cool for school. And it's a big sin. And I pray for all of your forgiveness. And that is, I have never played a single moment, a single second of a Pokemon game.
For shame!
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really have any interest in playing them either. And I will admit that I feel like I need to at some point play a Pokemon game. But like I think that so Pokemon gets popular, at least for me, when I'm like 14, 15. And when I was 14 or 15, I was trying really hard to be cooler than I actually was. I was buying like those Nike shoes that I couldn't afford because we didn't have a lot of money. I was wearing these like baggy Tommy Hilfiger jeans, these giant oversized shirts, and like these nerds in the corner in the lunchroom would be like on their Game Boys playing Pokemon, and I was like, "What's wrong with you? Come on." Anyway, so in all seriousness, like I was still playing RPGs at the time, so I don't know. I just didn't know what it was, And so like I wasn't interested in it at the time. I sort of had this like bias against it when I first saw it, but then of course I grew up a little bit and realized that like this is just like a fun collection thing. Every time I think about playing it, outside of like the high-end competitive scene, which seems like it would be at this point basically impossible to get into because the people who are competitive Pokemon players scare me. I like people who like go to like travel all the way to Japan to go see like tournaments for it. I'm like, what are you doing? It's one of those things where like I don't love monster collecting or like as a concept, as like the whole point of a game. If it's like on the side of something I really enjoy, like Dragon Quest V's monster collecting, I think is great because it's just like sort of part of the natural progression. Or they added it into Dragon Quest 3's remake, and I thought that was fantastic. It was fun. It's just like a thing I could do on the side. It might power me up a little bit, but it wasn't like the whole point of the game. And when it becomes the whole point of the game, it sort of turns me off. And I know like a lot of people are like, "Oh, the Pokemon's so cute," and I don't care. And I will say this: so my wife, who works for another outlet now, she was playing Scarlet and Violet for review. And every time I walked by it, I was like, "What are you doing to my TV? Like, I need this body horror garbage to like be removed from my television." Because it's the worst looking game I have ever seen. I'd rather play Dragon Quest 1 on the NES than ever see that again. And so that didn't help me. And Pokemon fans are just like weirdly intense or like weirdly hate their own franchise sometimes. I don't know. There's like this whole fandom around it, and I need someone to convince me that I might actually enjoy playing a Pokemon game.
I think one of the big things with Pokemon is you sort of have to, when you first get into it, separate yourself away from what the perception of it is, because that is so much what is a barrier for a lot of people these days, because it is such this huge franchise. And just as a caveat, I do have a family member who works for Scopely, which now runs Pokemon Go. This is not me advertising that at all. But Pokemon has this image of itself, and then there are the actual games. And I'm a little bit older than you, Zach. Shocking. But I was much like you. I saw people playing it. I did not get the hype. And then I picked up a used copy of Pokemon Sapphire, and I started playing it, and I realized it is a fun, cozy little game. You do not have to collect them all. It's fun too, and my little obsessive brain did have fun going, ooh, check that off. It was like going, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, another one for my collection. But it's one of those games where you get to shut your brain off. The battles are pretty simplistic, but a little bit challenging. You can do different routes and figure it out. There's not a lot of thought involved, and for a lot of people, it's a really good game to just take your time. Take a couple hours at a time to just relax and forget about worlds that don't make sense, and instead deal with a bad guy that's fairly easy to and straightforward to figure out about, and a bunch of friendly NPCs who have weird collecting habits and little jokes in them, and just have a moment to take a break. It's a game that you could put down for 3 months and pick back up, and you know exactly where you left off.
I think it is quite shameful, Zach, that you haven't. The phrase is you've got to catch them all. It's not you can catch them all if you feel like it. You know what I mean? You're deliberately disobeying. I mean, no, I'm only joking. I've only played like a few hours of one game myself. So sorry, Mal.
You got to catch these hands, Zach and Paul. Yeah, I appreciate that people can still like continue to love Pokemon. Like I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. I feel like for me and for people, most of my friend group, Pokemon was like really formative in our early gaming days. Like it was like the first RPG for a lot of people, I feel like. Um and in a way that's much more accessible than like Final Fantasy VII was like the first RPG for a lot of people. Um and it's like it has such a social aspect of like trading and like showing off your collection and everything like that to each other. I played with my brother, I played with my friends, like all across the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. And I always make the joke, but it's true. Like it in part taught me how to read. You know what I mean? Like it was a really formative game for me. But like I've a I've evolved intellectually. I've gone to a point where like I don't really enjoy the gameplay anymore, and like it happened with like I think Pearl was the last one, and I was like okay, that was pretty good, but like I'm gonna put it down after I beat it. And then like Black and White, I was like, okay, what is it like these designs and like these aren't the 150 that I grew to love, like it just felt like, oh, this is for like the next generation. It's kind of like, to me, it's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that. Like there are the people that complain like these new Ninja Turtles are like stupid and childish, and I'm like, that's because they're for children, that's the target audience. So I
like
feel
when
like
people talk about Star Wars. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm like, I'm glad that I had my experience with like my trilogy and with my few Game Boy games. And I'm like, I now like if I'm gonna play an RPG, like if I want to settle into tapping the A button, like I want to put a little more thought into it, then Pokemon just felt a little bit mindless to me. Like to be fair though, I played like an idiot. Like I play most games like an idiot. So it's just like I'm gonna blast my enemy with flamethrower until I run out of PP, whatever that is. But
Um,
yeah, so I there's your clip for the beginning. But I really enjoyed my time with it. And my closest oldest friend, like he's still a diehard Pokemon fan, and I'm like, that's awesome that you still love that, man. But like you know, it's not for me anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that for me, particularly, I teach younger kids. I teach elementary school kids, and so the fact that I know what Pokemon is and I could name some of the Pokemon makes me one of the cool teachers.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it makes a
Utter
difference.
cringe. But the fact that a kid can come up to me and start talking about Mimikyu, and I'm like, yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And I admit, like, I have not played Scarlet and Violet, and uh, I'm mostly just playing, say, Pokemon Go, which isn't an RPG, but it still has a little bit of comfort in it for me.
Mm.
But that's
Yeah.
not for everybody, and it's the fact that the game has continued to be a source of comfort for a certain set of population, and that it has been it hasn't really tried to grow with its original fan base, and it's more instead, going, hey, we'll get the younger kids this time.
Yeah, 100%. It's a cultural touchstone. Mm.
I think I've probably said on podcasts before, but I was a little bit too old to really get it when it first arrived. I was a little bit past it, so um, it didn't make an impact on me at all. And it's only in recent years, after having kids myself, and that I've become very familiar with it through them. They're particularly my oldest is really really obsessed with it. He loves all of it. He loves the new titles, and it kind of illustrates the points that Lucy and Matt have made so far already. That these new games, yeah, I hear the sentiment from long term fans that things like Arceus and Scarlet and Violet are not delivering the sort of thing that they wanted from the series. But the new audience, as far as I'm aware anyway, are absolutely down for it. That doesn't mean that we should necessarily excuse things. Like, I'm still astounded that the new titles don't have voice acting as a minimum. Really, I think it's kind of for the most successful franchise of anything of all time. It seems just
I mean,
really.
Game Freak knows that they can literally just pump out. I don't
Mm,
want to get all into this, but Game Freak knows they
yeah,
can
yeah.
pump out whatever garbage they want, and people are going to buy it. And I don't teach students nearly as young as Lucy. I teach juniors and seniors, but I still have plenty of kids who are playing Pokemon. And when Scarlet and Violet came out, my students were all talking about it, and I couldn't talk about the fact that I was watching it at home. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this game looks so horrible. And in fairness, apparently Scarlet and Violet looks much better on the Switch too, which is a refrain for all things Switch, I suppose. But I mean, part of it is that I think Game Freak. It just annoys me as as a company nowadays with the way they handle some things. But I do agree, like it doesn't bother me that they're getting rid of the original 990 decks, and they're not going to have like 17,000 Pokemon in the new one. Like you're 45 years old, get over it, dude. But you know, what's interesting is that like a lot of the things you're describing, Lucy, are a lot of the reasons that I haven't played things like Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing, games that I know you have put a lot of time into.
Shush.
But like for me, like cozy like needs a little more friction, and so like I because like if it's totally cozy, I get bored and I start thinking about the world that doesn't make sense, or like my student who is struggling at home or whatever. I worry about the things that are happening in my life when the game is too cozy. So I guess my last question before we move on to the next confession is like, if I wanted to give one a shot, which one do you think would be like a smart one to start with?
One of my favorite games of all time for a long time was Pokemon Ruby. So like the Omega Ruby remake on
Yes,
3DS is
and
really
the
solid.
Omega Sapphire. I
Yeah.
played the Omega Sapphire. That was actually my first Pokemon game, and
Oh.
having played the others, it's a really it has some of the goofiness of that becomes so much more prevalent in the in the more modern games, but it still has much of the core elements of the older games, and it the whole Pokemon Index is not overwhelming. The
Yeah.
Pokedex,
Yeah.
it's manageable, and there's still enough of a community around it that you can it's very intuitive and easy to pick up, and you don't have to spend your time wondering where the swimmers are keeping all their Pokeballs.
I'm always amused by the fact that like a 10-year-old boy is like carrying like a god in his pocket, like oh, I just found this in like the cave. But that, and I was gonna say like Ruby or like Omega Ruby or Fire Red Leaf Green are like the GBA remakes of the original pair of games. And like, so if you want to experience the original 150, I think that's like a really solid game. If you can, find a magical Game Boy, Zach, I think you would. A magical Game Boy in 2025. You can enjoy that
How
game.
would I ever do that?
If you wander into a cave, you might find
wander into a cave and find a 30-year-old laptop. I'll be able to play it.
My son will say Arceus, but he is a small child, so
I have heard that Arceus is one of the better ones too. Alana is a big fan of Arceus, and she's excited about Z to A, as she says. So yeah.
Oh, those British.
I know, right?
Hey,
so
steady now.
So I haven't played a big Nintendo franchise that is again probably the biggest RPG franchise in the world, and I get to run an RPG podcast. So no gatekeeping here. Paul, I don't know actually which one you're going to talk about, but I know there are a couple of Nintendo franchises that you haven't played that to me are much bigger sins.
Yeah, indeed. And I my plan for this entire podcast was to rely on the fact that I am British, and we had some horrible oversights and things that were released in this territory. But I don't think I can for either of the things that I've picked. So I'm disappointed in myself. I should have picked something that wasn't released here. But I will go. The first thing that I will go with, it's, as you say, both big Nintendo franchises. I think I'll start with the Fire Emblem series. I have never,
Oh, shame.
I'm getting angry. Hold me back.
Well, so it's lucky we're doing this over the internet, really. I suppose. Isn't it? I feel safe.
I'm coming overseas, Paul.
Oh no! 12 hours time. I'll have to watch out
quickly.
I've seen plenty of street fights in Britain. I know they happen. Total aside, but like the UK is the only place where I've legitimately seen multiple occasions dudes in the middle of the street rip their shirt off, start screaming profanities at each other, and I've seen it like 6 times, always in Brighton, for the record.
Yeah,
but
it's our version of exercise. You've got to.
It's excellent. Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Anyway, why haven't you played Fire Emblem, Paul? I say as a person who's barely played any Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this. I think why not make it worse and just say that I haven't really played like any strategy, tactical style RPGs or particularly JRPGs. So I could throw like Final Fantasy Tactics on here.
Okay,
as well,
so we're just gonna make this all tactical RPGs, just so you know, because this is a much bigger confession. Continue.
Yeah, in particular. Again, I think I mentioned before in this discussions on Switch 2 I had with on Random Encounter that I kind of dropped away from Nintendo after the GameCube era, and I also didn't that I didn't have a few. I didn't have an N64 before that, and again, being British, I will say, there were some releases that didn't arrive for afterwards, and as I said, after that. Didn't have a Nintendo console. I wasn't really aware of any of these releases. Really, I think it's only recently that I've become cognizant of Fire Emblem and its history and place in the genre. It really, it massively appeals to me. There's absolutely no reason for me not to have tried one now, but I've just never gotten around to it. I really wish I could, and I know that I should as well. I don't know if any of you have any experience with the series that you'd like to maybe encourage me to bump it up my backlog, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm actually also a relative latecomer to the series. I mean, obviously, like a lot of people in the West, I got clued into it through Super Smash Brothers. I'm like, who's this like anime guy with a sword? Marth is like awesome as a character. Um, I first got into and I got really hard into Fire Emblem Awakening, the like 3DS, yeah, the 3DS one.
Mm.
Um, which just like it was so direct. Like there is a story there, but it's like the way that you just jump into battle from like a menu, like there's not like an overworld or anything like that really. um I played it many times over, like on hard difficulty, and like you can do it on the classic difficulty where if you lose a character they're gone for good. um but honestly, like I don't think this series is as hard as people always credit it as being, especially like late game Fire Emblem, because kind of like Zach mentioned something similar to this earlier. I can't remember if that was on the record or not, but um it's not like that tactical, to be honest, for a tactics game. Like
Mm.
if you're looking for like that kind of strategy element, you do better. Like I would strongly recommend the indie game War Groove, which came out like it's on all like modern consoles at this point, I think, and like War Groove 2 is also pretty decent, but like that's a very challenging like strategic game that I it's more in the vein of Advance Wars, where as your characters take damage, they do less damage too, so like you have that element. Whereas Fire Emblem, it's like
Hmm.
after you jack up your characters, the whole like turn-based element is just like, okay, like I have to herd my sheep of like overpowered anime boys and girls into this thin castle door and just wipe out everyone with one character anyway. So like I don't know. I Yeah, it sounds like I hate this series again. I do think Awakening is a really good game. Like I mean, I played it many times, but I would say like your best bet is to hop into Three Houses, which does have like a really great story and like three very different playthroughs depending on the house that you choose. It's as challenging as you want it to be, and it has like a lot of like anime tropes of like dating sim elements and things like that that you can completely skip out on pretty much if you don't care about that, which I don't really. um yeah, and the gameplay itself is still fun, still satisfying, but yeah, you'll have the most fun with it, I think, in the like opening hours, and then it will just be like it is satisfying of building characters up, but like the challenge kind of dwindles pretty hard.
I mean, with Awakening, even like, I'll just say straight up, like I can talk about other tactical RPGs, and I will in a second.
Mm.
But I've talked about this on earlier podcasts. I've only played like 10 hours of Awakening, and that was it.
Mm,
And even like the opening hours of Awakening were like piss easy, because I
mm.
could have soloed the entire thing with just Frederick. I remember his name still. Dude on a horse would just walk up, one shot someone, walk up, one shot someone. Everyone else can just stand in the back while Frederick just like wipes the floor with everything. I got annoyed because like I made my main character male, which turned out to be like a mid-maxing mistake, which I shouldn't have cared about because the game was so easy to begin with. The story of Awakening didn't really grab me, so I was like, eh. But I have put Fire Emblem 7 or the Blazing Blade on so many polls for Retro Encounter, or suggested it so many times, that eventually, I don't actually think we've actually done a Fire Emblem game journal ever on Retro Encounter. We've talked about it. We had like a spoiler cast for Three Houses, but it's never happened. So it will happen eventually. But one of the reasons it's not happening now is the tactical game that I am going to recommend to you, Paul, which is the one that I think everybody would. But I think there's a good reason for it, especially because it's coming out. A new version of it's coming out in 52 days as of the time of this recording, and that is Final Fantasy Tactics. It's the
Never
tactical
heard of it.
game that puts tactics games on the map over here, not just because the name Final Fantasy is attached to it. Like I picked it up
Mm.
right when it came out because it had the name Final Fantasy on it, and I was like, "What is this?" And the very first fight, I didn't know you could add like units to like your attack squad, and you just have like two characters that are automatically there. And I went through that fight like 17 times before I managed to get it with just those two characters. It's very satisfying, but obviously you're older, you'll be able to understand it. It's very approachable, it's very breakable if you really want it to be. The job system's very like Final Fantasy V. There's a lot of really cool combinations you can do. It's again, it's very approachable for a tactical game. It's a little tougher in the early going, but who knows what the balancing will be like in the new version of it. But really, I know you like story, and the Final Fantasy Tactics story is just chef's kiss. It's phenomenal. I still think it's the best Final Fantasy story ever. And my number 2 is somewhat controversial, so I will not share that right now. But Tactics, I think universally is adored for its story. Whether you play the War of the Lions localization or the updated one, we'll see what it's like. It's a great entry point. But you also, whenever we finally get a Fire Emblem on Retro Encounter, you're more than welcome to join us as well. Love another newcomer. Yeah, so that's my opinion. Triangle strategy is also pretty fun.
Yeah,
good
I'd love
choice.
to do that. I mean, Matt, with you saying that, Fire Emblem is a giant power fantasy with dating stuff. That's ideal for me, for the challenger-verse person that I am,
Perfect.
as you know. So that's just selling it more to me. But yeah, of course, as you say, that Tactics is definitely on my horizon. I mean, I imagine we all have like a trillion things on our horizon, so that's not saying much, really, is it? But for when it comes out soon, I know it's got that legendary status, and I'm deeply ashamed that I've never touched it. I probably wasn't aware. Again, probably wasn't. In honesty, probably wasn't even aware it existed until a few years ago, as well. Until I've started researching the history a bit more of the form that we all love. But yeah, no, I've heard you talk about the story before, Zach, of Tactics. So that is very tempting to me. It makes me feel that I should be investing some time in that.
We got to get Fire Emblem on Retro Encounter though. Like that would be great. But
I agree with you.
I would also strongly recommend, like, for a more like easy to get your hands on game, Unicorn Overlord. Yeah, Unicorn Overlord is great too. And like the movement is like much more smooth, and like I just love the flow of gameplay in that game a little bit more than like
And it looks
Fire
amazing
Emblem.
because, of course, it does. It's vanillaware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great game.
Yeah, no, I totally adore the vanillaware aesthetic, and that would be a great I think that also would be a great starting point for me in this type of games. Although I've heard that the narrative is a little less strong in that one than Tactics.
Well, that
Or
would
the
still put it
characters.
above Fire Emblem, I think.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Except for like people are gonna like come at me about like the genealogy of the Holy War, like which never even came out in English. It's like, okay.
So I don't think Fire Emblem is the biggest sin, and I haven't played much of it. But the next series I have tried to play, I have struggled to play. I look at it and like, that sounds so cool, and it seems like totally my jam, and then I try to play it and my head explodes. So Lucy, what's your next confession?
Forgive me, Father. Forgive me, Daddy. Because I have not played any of the Monster Hunter games. I feel like every time I read about it, I'm like, oh, this sounds really cool. And then I prepare myself to try and play one, and I'm just like, oh my God, there are all these different mechanics that I have to keep a track of, and my ADHD brain can't do that. And every time I see gameplay of it, I'm like, this seems really cool, but at the same time, it seems like it's a big investment, and I'm terrified of getting sucked into it, and 3 days later going, oh God, the dogs are looking at me, asking why I haven't taken them out, and haven't fed them, and oh God, they're eating my toes. But yeah, it's one of those games that everybody talks about, and I keep coming back to as maybe next time, and I just never have.
I do like Monster Hunter, but I think it's a good series, not a great series as much as people like give it credit for. For the reason that you're saying, Lucy, it's like it's so unintuitive, and people always say the same thing every like 5 years when a new one comes out. They go, "Oh, this one is like really made for newbies," and like they really streamlined everything. And I'm like, how do you take your weapon now? I mean, I've played like a ton of them, all the way through, and it's like the controls make. Sorry, I'm getting angry. The controls make like pilot wings look intuitive. You know what I mean? I'm like, how do you do
Oof.
anything in this game? So I do think that it's like a fun series for like the camaraderie that you get. Like there is an element of like Souls-ish combat, which I know it is way before Souls, that you can do with like co-op, which is pretty fun. And the monster designs are really like pleasant. The music is fantastic, but for me it's like a game that I will play through and enjoy every monster, like hunting every monster like once or twice, and then it just gets a little bit repetitive for me. But I do think it's really worth playing for like at least one playthrough. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Rise being a really good entry point. Wild's the most recent one, like less so because I don't really like the chocobo thing that you ride around because it like automatically takes you everywhere and it kind of takes out the fun of like the actual hunting element. But I don't know. It's another game that I play like a dummy where I just go hammer and I just like bonk, 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 bonk until the monster falls over, and like that is fun for me. So if you like that kind of combat, yeah, it's worth jumping into.
That's one of the things, is that sometimes I do play like uh one of my playthroughs of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I was the hammer junkie. I would just be like bonk 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 bonk. Okay, you're dead. Good. To the next one. So that does appeal to me, but at the same time, it's, as you said, it's not a incredibly intuitive game, where other games like it, at least you can pick it up and generally have an idea of where you're going. And I'm not always the one who, you know, I need a game to be slightly intuitive for me to be able to play it.
It has the feeling, doesn't it, of because I'm in a similar boat. I've not played. I've seen people play a bit of Rise, and that's about it. But it's one of those things that feels a bit more like more of a lifestyle than a game.
Yeah.
In a way, a bit like people who are really into fighting titles. To get really into it, you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to learn all the combinations and things like that. So it's a similar thing with Monster Hunter titles as well. I suspect, as you say, Lucy, it's not something you can just kind of dip a toe in and immediately get to grips with all the mechanics. So I can identify with why you might not have done that yet.
That is like the fun element. Like you nailed it, Paula. Like the community kind of aspect of it and like the culture around it, and like people live and die by the weapons that they play. Like they're like oh, like hammer gang, like I'm a hammer player, like oh, I play light bow or whatever. And that is fun. Like there's a lot of versatility in that way, but I don't think that all the weapons are that fun to play, at least for me personally. Like only a handful of them are actually enjoyable. But
Yeah, and any title that's going to force me to, cooperate with other people, I'm just not.
I don't
I'm
want to
just
play
not
with
there.
other
Yeah,
people.
exactly. Yeah.
it is a really positive experience. Yeah.
It's funny because it was always sort of one of those games that I was sort of vaguely interested in, and then a little over a year ago I was at Summer Game Fest and they had like sort of this live demo of Wilds, and I was like, oh my gosh, this game looks incredible. Like just like all the different ways that you could take down the monster and all the different like events that were happening. And obviously like I've been to enough of these gaming showcase things to know that it was curated, right? But I was like, if this game is 10% as cool as it looks, it's going to be my thing. And I love Soulsborne games. I love stuff like that. But then, so as soon as I got home, I picked up Rise and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play Rise. And then like in the first hour, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just threw like 17 systems at me. And now I'm off like killing rabbits on this map. And I'm like, well, this is boring. This isn't fun at all. And also I have no idea what I'm doing. So I talked to the biggest Monster Hunter fan I know, Mike Solosi, and he's like, yeah, you kind of just need to like play with someone who knows what they're doing. And then like after about 10 hours, you'll get it. And I was like, nah, I'm good. It's still like in the back of my mind, it eats at me. I'm like, dude, you'd love those games. Dude, you'd love those games. Dude, you'd love those games. But one of the things I love about Soulsborne games is that like I can kind of play it how I want and I can play it really simply. I pick up my big sword, I walk around and I bonk things. I don't have to go like farm for stuff to get stuff to spawn or whatever it was asking me to do. I don't even really know what I was doing. I was just killing rabbits. I get overwhelmed by too many systems sometimes. It's one of the reasons why sometimes Western RPGs don't appeal to me as much, because there's a lot of systems and a lot of systems is not my thing. So I want to play it, but I haven't been convinced yet.
Well, and Zach, you just touched on the other reason why I do want to eventually try and play it is so that I can beat Solosi yet again.
It's very important. It's very
Yes.
important.
It is a fun game. Like, it's one of those games where like there's always people playing it. Like, it does have a huge Japanese audience, so like you can log in at any time, especially at like nighttime if you're in the West, and like you'll just be party up with like 3 Japanese players that will usher you through the game, which like that's pretty fun, I think. But for me, it's like the franticness of it. Like, I love the feeling of like compared to Souls games, it's like the monster knocks you back with like a wing sweep or something like that, and then or you just barely miss it, and you start sprinting while chugging a potion and like just eating a bunch of stuff that you've collected. Like, I do think that's really fun, and like it has a great vibe to it. It never feels like too dire, even though it can be really challenging at like higher level hunts. But the thing that I think that people never criticize it for, which I think is a huge problem, is like it's just too repetitive. I mean, like when you're fighting, the monsters' health pools are huge, even if you're playing with 4 people in some cases. So it does get a little bit repetitive of just like, it is bonk, 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 but it's like, okay, I think I've bonked this thing 1,000 times. Like, come on now. Although I think the more recent games, like the health pools are a lot smaller. So you can do like a 15-minute hunt or whatever, or even like 10-minute hunt or 5-minute hunt.
It's a bit hard on the old wrists, is it, after
I've
or the or the thumbs?
I've done
Matt
enough.
doesn't have old wrists yet, so he doesn't feel it.
Wee babe.
So Paul has an excuse because he has old wrists for why he can't play Monster Hunter. But Matt,
Yes.
I don't think you have an excuse for the next sin you're about to confess to. I don't think so. You can use age, but I'm not going to buy it. Anyway, let's talk about your most disappointing sin, Matt.
You know what? I've done a lot of bad in my life, and this is one thing that I feel no ounce of shame for. I'm sorry to say, this confession is a declaration. I have not played
declaration.
any Dragon Quest aside from Dragon Quest 11.
Continue.
And I'll tell you why. All right, you ready for this, you old wristies? Dragon Quest, like compared to Final Fantasy, for example, right? Just to take 2 like very parallel series, I feel like Final Fantasy has diversity and range, and every title is unique and different from each other. So like you can enjoy them all for different regards. For me, if you've played one Dragon Quest as as I have, like I feel like there's no need to go back and play the other ones. And like stylistically, the aesthetic is the same. And like I love Dragon Ball, I love Akira Toriyama. The music, people are like, yeah, the music is all right, and I'm like, okay, well, that's another reason I don't need to dive into it. And like, it just seems like it values cutesiness and like just like, I'm gonna say the word recycling the same monster designs over and over and over again, where I'm like, okay, the only thing then that seems unique is like, this episode where you go into this village and then like this thing happens and then you leave the village and then like you move closer towards the Dark Demon King. I'm like, it just seems so stereotypical JRPG that I'm like, it's like a parody of itself at this point, I feel like. And I know it's not, it's the original, so it's like things are parodying it, but I'm like, I've done enough, I feel like, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, by all means.
I need a minute to gather my thoughts and quell my rage. So anybody who would like to go talk about their experience with Dragon Quest, you go right on ahead.
Mine is characteristically much worse than that. So maybe I shouldn't. I've been playing. I think my sole experience at the moment is I've been playing Dragon Quest 7 on the 3DS for about 5 years.
A ringing endorsement.
That's an interesting one to start with,
if ever there was one.
Yeah, like the eternal game that I will break out every now and again when I think I feel a bit guilty and feel like I should do a bit more.
I mean, that game is so episodic that I feel like it actually kind of would work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that's it for me, really. So yeah, I can't really say much more than that.
Well, I mean, I played 7, and I played it for so long just because I wanted to get everybody leveled up as far as they could go, and it was just so much. I just felt it was just fun roaming that world, and did play 11, but really I've been enjoying Quest Builders 1 and 2, because that's just, it takes some of the standard elements of Dragon Quest and adds a building component to it, which actually fits in more with the cutesiness than some of the, say, action RPG of it, which is interesting for me. And I didn't think I would be a Dragon Quest fan at first. Again, I'm not a big Dragon Ball fan. I was one of those people who would go, "Oh God, the fight scenes last for 5 hours." Uh, but as soon as I picked up Dragon Quest, I was like, "Oh, I understand the style more, and I really enjoy it." And it is such an iconic series. The only thing I wish is that the composer would drop dead and they finally bring on a new one.
Well, he literally did, so you're good.
Yay!
I mean, in fairness, go look up Tsukiyama. I don't wish death on many people, but I think this one's okay. Anyway, wishing death on Tsukiyama is not nearly as large of a sin as the garbage that Matt just said. Anyway, in all sincerity, okay, so I understand your point, Matt. I get it, but it's wrong. And let me tell you what. Dragon Quest.
I can hear you tapping your fingers in.
I know.
So Dragon Quest is phenomenal. So I think that 11, in many ways, you're right. 11 is sort of I think it's like almost like an endpoint in some ways of what Dragon Quest has been. And I get the impression with 12, even though 12 has been in development for who knows how long now, that 12 is going to try to take it in a different direction. And I don't want them to do that. So I think that while there is a lot of sort of iteration on a theme with Dragon Quest, each one definitely has its own feeling, its own vibe, its own thing that it's doing particularly well. Like the combat in 8 feels very different from the combat in 11, for example. I think the combat in 8 is better, and the art style in 8 is just phenomenal. That level 5 sort of cell shaded, and it was sort of like the last time Sugiyama contributed anything good to the world was 8's soundtrack, because 11 does not qualify. Because I do not like the music in that game.
Yeah.
Except for the occasional times that he iterates on old themes, and I'm like, oh, this you used to have some talent. But I'm trying to think of how to express myself properly here. So I think that because each one iterates enough on it iterates enough on different design philosophies and different design ideas that it works really well. And I think that Dragon Quest, in the sort of like individual storytelling that it does better than any other game, in my opinion. You've seen that in 11, but I think that like sort of like that, go to that town, solve the town's problems. It is very classic, and it is very much wants to be classic. But they all have different iterations on what it wants to be. So I think that if you're going to try another one, in all sincerity, Dragon Quest V is my favorite Dragon Quest game.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, Dragon Quest V has a genuinely excellent story. I think it is far better than 11's story, which I think is pretty good. I enjoy 11's story. I think that the characters there are fun. Sylvando is just like a breath of just life and energy and love, and he's phenomenal. But Dragon Quest V's narrative, I think, is like one of the legitimately best narratives in gaming, and it also, like, the way that Dragon Quest knows how to sort of like use its systems to create sort of like build into that narrative. Like 5 in particular, because of the structure of it, you think about, like, I don't know, like in Final Fantasy VII, remember, like in the original, you go in the Nibelheim flashback and you're fighting with Sephiroth, like, and how powerful Sephiroth is compared to you. Like Dragon Quest V does that extremely well. The monster collecting is actually really engaging in Dragon Quest V. Dragon Quest IV does this sort of like fractured narrative thing where you have like these different people and they sort of come together later. It's really good. That I really like 7, even though it's a little bit longer. I think that I understand that they all feel like they are similar enough. And I think that if you play 1 through 3 to some degree, you might feel that way. I think you can probably skip 1 and 2, at least the originals. We'll see what the remakes are like. But 3 sort of really establishes that template. And then each one really does iterate on the theme a lot more than I think you probably think,
Mm.
because they are all experimenting. And sure, there is a degree, we talked earlier about comfort games. There is a degree of comfort to a Dragon Quest game that I really appreciate. I appreciate the simple rhythms of it, the simple rhythms of the game. But each one feels different enough. And I think that if you're going to play 2 more, try 5, try 8, and give those a shot. And if you're still like, well, this is like the same stuff over and over again, first of all, you're wrong. Learn
Do I
learn the
sound like
word
that?
subtlety, bro. All
I
Canadians
gotta admit
sound,
that was eerie.
yeah,
Yeah.
all
Uncanny.
Canadians sound like that. Anyway, there is more variation than you think. I really think that
Mm.
you and and what I know about your taste and what you like in games, I think 5 you really enjoy, and I think
Mm.
you would like 8 more than you think too.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I did love 11. Like, I think it was a fantastic game, and it was tuned so perfectly, and like the episodic nature was cool. And I always think recently, I'm like, I really want like Final Fantasy to just do one throwback game. Like, I want like 17 or whatever to just be like a throwback turn-based thing. So I guess Dragon Quest is like still sitting there with all that flavor. I did pick up the 3 remaster, and it's waiting to be played. Um, and honestly, like the reason I picked it up is like all Dragon Quest stuff is like dirt cheap here. It's everywhere, and like you hear the music everywhere. You see the slimes everywhere. Like it is like such a cultural thing here, that even people that don't care about games announce like they know about Dragon Quest here. That is true. Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna play 3 relatively soon, and then yeah, 5 has been on my radar for a long time. I'm just deciding on how to play it. Like I I I think I might have actually the Japanese like DS version of it. I gotta check.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better balanced. I think that with 6, there's some argument because like the art style in the SNES or the Famicom version of 6
Mm.
is really, really good. It's like almost Chrono Trigger esque.
Oh.
And whereas like 4, 5, and 6 all have sort of the same art style on the DS, whereas 5 was a really early Super Famicom game, and it looks it. um, and there are some additions to 5, I think, that make it worth it. I've never completed the Famicom version of 5, but the DS version is just fantastic, and it just the 3-act structure. It's so good. I love that game.
All I ask
Yeah,
for from my Dragon Quest games is some puff puff, and then I'm in.
I mean, you will receive said puff puff in every Dragon Quest game.
Oh boy.
So there you go.
Woohoo.
nation.
I love the tone of them too. Like the tone doesn't take itself too seriously, but it also does some serious things. Like it has like such a particular tone,
Hmm.
and I think 11 captures that really well too, right? But I think that within the variations of the tone, like I think that it's from a pure game design perspective, it's really interesting to go back and play those games too.
I think having played a fair amount of 7, it kind of reminds me, and I know we've spoken about it a lot, and you've just spoken about it as well, Matt. The 2 pillars of Squeenix, the Final Fantasy with its ever changing nature, and Dragon Quest with its, although taking into account what you were saying, Zach, about iteration, but it's fairly similar nature, and I kind of, for me that is appealing, and I'm looking to get into to more of the titles. It feels a bit like when you go back, at least for someone of my era, you go back and read like an early 90s or an 80s fantasy book, you're probably not going to get the degree of experimentation and different viewpoints and different voices that you do nowadays, which is fantastic. But there is something a little bit not, you say, cozy and nostalgic about visiting that type of environment, and Dragon Quest offers that. I feel, from what I've experienced of it. Anyway, certainly it puts me back to the to my youth JRPGs from that period of time as well. So yeah, I think, I mean, that's one of the big appeals, isn't it, of the series, and I think that shouldn't be undervalued. I don't think.
Mm. Would it be fair to say, because I had this thought earlier when you guys, well, like when we were all talking about Pokemon, I feel like, for a lot of people, Dragon Quest was their Pokemon of just like, this is the introduction to what an RPG is. And I feel like to some degree that ship has sailed for me like Pokemon has for other people. But I know it's deeper than Pokemon, and I'm still willing to go back and try it out. But I do feel like there's some degree of that at play here.
I think you've definitely hit on something there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you read my review of Dragon Quest 3, it's sort
Yeah.
of how I framed it, right?
Mm.
And so certainly that is, I will acknowledge fully, like I started playing RPGs as soon as they came to the West, right? Like I was playing Final Fantasy when I was 4 years old. I was playing Dragon Quest. So I was very young. And there's no doubt that that's part of it. But I actually, because Dragon Quest wasn't present in the West for so long, and then the original Dragon Quest 7 or Dragon Warrior 7, I don't think is very fun to play. Definitely play the 3DS version if you're going to play a version of that game. Because of that, like I had a lot of space. Like I didn't play a Dragon Quest game for probably 15, 17 years. And it wasn't like when I played 8, for example, which was the first one I played again. Like it wasn't like I was like, oh, this reminds me so much of my childhood, It was like, oh, this game is just really freaking good. And I really like the balancing. Like I like the way that in other games, maybe like Fantasia do this better, where they use like really simple systems that are still like highly strategic. Dragon Quest 11, I think, is a little bit easier than some of the earlier ones, but they're never crazy. But there's still like strategy. You still have to put thought into it within the simplicity of it. I think that the thing that Dragon Quest does remarkably well is the way it tells complex stories sometimes, and deals with complex themes in a way that seems sort of like effortless and silly on its face, or the way that they have like complex or interesting battles that seems like sort of simple or silly on its face. And again, you've played 11, you understand this, but I think that the way they iterate on that in earlier titles as well is also valuable.
Yeah, I don't personally have any of that nostalgia to draw on, because it's another one of those that until a few years ago, didn't even know existed. And I think that was again a combination of maybe they didn't come here to the UK, or weren't quite as highlighted. None of my friends were into it, or into the JRPG or RPG sphere at all, really. And we didn't, early days of the internet and things like that. So yeah, not exposed to it at all until the last few years. So it's one that I personally am looking to try and rectify that. Hopefully, in the not too distant future.
I'm in. You've all sold me. I'm gonna get some DQ, some Dairy Queen, and then I might play Dragon Quest.
Do you guys have Dairy Queen in Japan?
No, sadly,
Okay,
no.
I was like, I doubt it. They don't. I mean, I don't think they have them in the UK either. And Alana's like, should we try out Dairy Queen? And I'm like, no, absolutely not.
Nobody's willing to dunk my cone upside down, no matter how much I beg them. They just keep it right side up, and it's so heartbreaking.
That just sounds dirty.
Yeah, I stopped myself from saying we euphemism city this episode.
Puff puff. I just see puff puff.
Well, anyway, I don't forgive you for your sin, and you are officially banned from Retro Encounter from here until the end of time.
No.
Until the next time you're on an episode. So we only have 2 confessions left, and I will start with mine. And it's one that I genuinely am sad about, because it's a game series that seems like my jam, that feels like my jam. And I tried to play the first one, and maybe it was just like my headspace or something. I don't know. But I was like, this is like weird and doesn't make any sense. But like for the sake of it, I don't know. Anyway, so my next confession is Shadow Hearts, the Shadow Hearts series.
For shame.
I know. I put this on here just because I knew that Lucy was coming along today. I think about Shadow Hearts. Like, I like weird things. Anybody who knows me would say, like, most people would be like, you just like the weirdest movies. I'm like, Quentin Tarantino's not weird, whatever. But and so like Shadow Hearts is a little bit odd. I think that almost everyone will acknowledge that it has sort of like a particular tone, a sort of odd horror tone. But when I was playing the original Shadow Hearts, it was like these really interminable dungeons sometimes. And I was like, I got lost a lot, and I struggle with pre-rendered backgrounds. I think it's because of my color blindness. And so like I would get lost a lot, and I'm playing it, and like the story's happening, and I'm like, there's like some war, and it's some like weird alternative history thing. but I don't really know what's happening. And then there was like something with like a woman in a lake, and she was telling this long text story. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? And I'm usually totally into that kind of stuff, and I love like timing based stuff in combat. Like I love that kind of stuff, but like it just didn't work for me yet. I think it might have been a timing thing or something, but I know at least Lucy's going to try to convince me to actually give it a shot again. Maybe I should try Covenant first, but I always feel like I got to start with 1 because like Covenant is like a really direct sequel. So I don't know.
Well,
Who
this is
here's
the
played
interesting thing
Shadowhearts?
about Shadow Hearts is that if we're talking really truly the beginning, you'd actually be starting with Kodelka,
Mm.
which
Yeah, I don't want to
you
do that.
know
I've seen what that looks like.
for a lot of people, I do actually say you can play Covenant first because storytelling wise, it catches you up fairly quickly, and then playing 1, you get the happy ending that 2 denies you, because Shadow Hearts in um, we don't talk about 3. I don't care what Wes says. We don't talk about 3. 1 and 2 in particular. I mean, they're true, you know, old school Japanese horror games that are wrapped up as an RPG, which is a little bit unusual, but there's so much of the story is based on Japanese storytelling, and uh, that not everything is going to go the way you want, and that there is this wonderful, great foreboding. And Zach, I'm going to tell you, I got lost a lot too, and I'm not colorblind. Uh, it is you're meant to get lost. You're meant to feel a bit of unease because you're in this world of monsters and demons and this feeling of foreboding that you might not, no matter what you do, get a good ending. You're still going to deal with these uh unnatural horrors, and that you're not always going to get everybody happy in the end. But at the same time, there are so many funny moments in it. There is this really rich and wonderful story that at first feels very episodic, and you're just sort of like, huh, how does this have tie into the rest of the story? And then the deeper you go, the more it all connects and really is this rich environment that makes you feel like it is a really thought out, really well done, realistic portrayal of what if World War II had fantastical elements that feel a little more grounded, as well as just so well dig into Japanese as well as European mythology and ties them together so well.
It does, like, I also have not played Shadow Hearts because of its, like, they refuse to re-release it in any form, you know? It's, like, very hard to get your hands on it, and it's infamously expensive, I believe, too. But,
Um, well, you can generally pick up Shadow Hearts 1 and Shadow Hearts Covenant fairly easily. Finding 3 or finding Kadelka at a reasonable price is hard. And it's less that they refuse to release it. It's just that at the moment, nobody's quite sure who owns the copyright. There are 3 different entities at the moment who are claiming they have some copyright. So even the creator said, we can't continue it because we don't know who we're supposed to talk to. And every time we try to talk to whoever, they say the other person we have to talk to. So it's this runaround, which is why they've ended up going. They're making a spiritual successor with Penny Blood.
right. The
If they can ever
Kickstarter.
find a publisher, because they've run out of money, unfortunately. I wish Sam was here because Sam's my bud on really championing the Shadow Heart series. That yes, it does feel a little bit of its age, being both of them being PlayStation 2 games, but it's such a rich and wonderful game series that I really feel like it does not get enough love, partially because it is stuck in copyright hell.
Yeah, my only experience with it is I did own an original copy. I bought it when it came out of Kadelka.
Ooh.
One of those rare titles that actually made it to the UK. But I never played it, not very much. And then I went through a period of not respecting retro stuff at all and sold it. And now my family, all my family endlessly hear about is me moaning about the fact that I did that and how much I hate my younger self for doing that.
And Keldeka really starts the series of
Mm.
making you realize, oh crap, nobody's going to really get a happy ending of this, because it's always interesting, particularly with the Shadow Hearts series, that the next game starts with the not happy ending version that you can get. Shadow Hearts 1 starts with, yes, you did not save one of the characters and he's dead. And that the other two characters went their separate ways and were not, never contacted each other again. And the Shadow Hearts 2 starts with, yeah, you let the second main character die in Shadow Hearts 1. Though, depending on how you play Shadow Hearts 2, as I said before, you can actually play Shadow Hearts 1 after it, because you can fix the bad ending of Shadow Hearts 1 through Shadow Hearts 2. The fact that they bring in such like obscure European lore with Francis Bacon and the church, and I know Japan right now loves having like the church as an evil concept. They really did a wonderful job of like actually really reading into European Western history and tying it into Japanese history and making this really wonderful series out of it.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, you make it sound even more enticing than I felt about it before, because I think I'm in both Matt's and Zach's boat, and that Matt's boat, and that I would love them if they could somehow work out the problems to do modern ports of these games. Would just be amazing on modern platforms. And as Zach said, the strangeness of it, as you describe it, Lucy, and as I've heard in other places, and that gothic horror atmosphere, reminding me of like Western titles like Eternal Darkness and things like that, which not a JRPG obviously, or RPG, that I absolutely loved. To see, and we get, it's quite rare that we get that kind of feeling and tone and flavor in a modern JRPG, at least. And
Yeah.
I would just love to see that. And as you're saying, Lucy, it just makes it even more. It makes the pain grow even greater as you speak.
Yeah, it really does. And it's also one of those games that people will look up some of the artwork for it and just like, you really are, you're such a visual based person, you really like this game. I go, yep, I really do like this game. And it really, I mean, it is such a departure from Japanese horror games, and it feels like much more almost a Western horror, like it's got elements of Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and other things in it that is really unique and is not something we've ever seen since, sadly.
Everything you've described is like, that sounds like my jam.
Mhm.
I need to play it. And so I don't know. I'll get back to it at some point. I'm gonna have to start it again because I left it for too long. But yeah, it's a game unlike the other one that I confessed to that I genuinely really want to play, because as everything you described sounds about as my jam as a game can sound. So I don't know what's wrong with me.
I will say that one of my favorite memories of that game is actually when Hillary was replaying Shadow Hearts 1 for Retro Encounter. And I was sitting next to her doing the voice of one of the big bad guys. But I was doing it like this. Face the ratatouille! And so that is still a running joke between us.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I did see that. Speaking of great voice acting, Paul, you have our final confession of the day, and it's a big one. So, Paul, why don't you take it away with your great sin?
Yeah, as we mentioned, my massive Nintendo blind spots, and this is probably the worst. And I think I may be jumped out of the community after this episode. I think in general, but particularly for this. And that is Xenoblade Chronicles. I've not played any of them. I could even open it further and say I've not played any of the Xeno series at all. not Xenosaga, not Xenogears. But yeah, those may be slightly more excusable. But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles, not touched a single one of them. To my great dishonor.
Everything I know about you indicates to me that you would be a big Xeno fan, Xenoblade in particular. Maybe why haven't you picked them up?
I think again a combination of lack of awareness. Originally didn't really know the series existed for a long time, and not gaming on the Nintendo platform. Those two things are probably linked. I've
Yeah.
rectified it. I'm started to rectify it now. As I mentioned in the Switch episode, picking up a Switch 2, and I've actually managed to get hold of a Wii now as well. Not that there's that many titles to try on that, but yeah. Yeah. Oh, we're doing a bit of a Claire Obscura crossover here as well.
I'm a little more woo about this. So, of all, I feel like people in the UK all the time are like, that game didn't come to us. I couldn't play it. But in this case, it's the opposite. That game didn't come to us. It came to you first. Xenoblade Chronicles came to you first, which I think is phenomenal that it happened, because so much of Xenoblade Chronicles DNA to me nowadays is that British voice acting. In particular, in 3, there's some phenomenal voice acting. So let me tell you why you need to play the Xenoblade series, and I can talk about Xeno in general as well. First of all, you love story, you love characters, right? Xenoblades get that in spades. They're just fantastic stories. I like them all. Xenoblade 1, it takes a little while to get going, but once it flips, you're like, oh, here's that Takahashi thing, because Takahashi's the one who created the Xeno meta series, we'll call it. Here's that Takahashi thing. And I like the story in 2 a lot more than most people. The story in 3, the end of chapter 5 into the beginning of chapter 6 is like some of the absolute best storytelling in video games, period, full stop. I think we're talking like ending E of Nier Automata, those of you who have played it. Quality there. Like, it's so strong. We say something's pretty good for a video game. No, this is just like really freaking good. The music, oh my goodness, the music in the Xenoblade series is just so good. It's beautiful. I mean, you can listen to it out of context and you're going to be like, oh, dude, this is a banger over and over again. They get Mitsuda to work on it, the guy who did Chrono Trigger and lots of other stuff. The Ace team, it's sort of a collaboration. Shimamura worked on some of it. I mean, like there's so much great music. There's a really good amount of exploration. I'm talking like Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3. I'll get to Cross in a second here. And the storytelling is just great. The combat isn't overly punishing by any means. It's relatively easily breakable in all 3 of them. The art style, I think, in the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles and then 2 and 3 all look really good. I mean, there's a little more of an anime aesthetic to maybe 2 than the other 2. Just excellent. If you're more into exploration and like deep combat, which I think is less your style, Cross is definitely there. I've only played about 10 hours of Cross. I am going to fix it once they finally do the 60 FPS update on the Switch 2. But it would still look excellent otherwise. I just have so many other things to play right now. But just in general, like Takahashi, just like he is interested in experimenting with the medium in terms of storytelling. Xenogears has plenty of problems in terms of its gameplay and design, but its story is just like phenomenal. It's not what I would recommend as a starting point if you get really into Takahashi. Worth it. Xenosaga, I've only played the first one. Generally, I think considered the weakest Takahashi trilogy, but the storytelling in that is really good. Hard to get your hands on. I just got my hands on a copy of Xenosaga Episode 3 for the low price of $200. So it's
Sweet
just
baby Jesus in a trophy case.
Yeah, I mean, it's Shadow Hearts 1 goes for about that right now too. So it's not too far off. But I do actually own that. It's just so strong, and it feels like an essential JRPG text if there is one to me. Takahashi is just such an important creator, and does such really interesting things with narrative and storytelling, and he's really evolved with gameplay over the years. It's just so good. Anyway, who else has played Xeno games?
I've only played Xenogears actually. Like I really like that game. It's got a very 90s anime mecha aesthetic to it, like Evangelion. But Xenoblade is still on my to play list. I did find a copy of 3 but they're actually like pretty expensive. Like most games here are like dirt cheap, especially Japanese made games, but Xenoblade Chronicles is like never dropping in price. It's always like pretty hard to find and pretty expensive here. But yeah, I've listened to the music like a fair amount, and it like I know the quality is fantastic. I'm a little bit intimidated by like it seems to me to be like one of those like 1 to 200 hour RPGs. Am I right in that? Or
They are lengthy, yes.
yeah.
And Cross might be the lengthiest of the three.
So if I happen to stumble upon a spare like 2 weeks of free time, I think I will play them. But I definitely do want to get around to them eventually. It just maybe like Paul, it's like it's just fallen down. It's been under prioritized, replaced by other shorter games most likely.
For me, and my gaming sort of increasing actually, and particularly focused on JRPGs in recent years, my attention has been stretched to catching up on some other series like Trails, which similar to Xenoblade is not short, and Like a Dragon, and being pulled in a million different directions. But as with you in Shadow Heart, Zach, it really Xenoblade does seem like everything that I would want out of a JRPG. So I really have no excuse for not having touched it so far. I've heard different views on, as you say, on the combat, particularly in number 2. I hear that's
Yeah.
maybe not the best.
Yeah, I mean, I personally like the combat in 2 more than the other like
right.
2 mainline games. But the story is controversial. There is a lot, I mean, a lot of like anime fan service stuff with some of the art, with some of the blades and the girls. It gets
Ew.
pretty wild at times. But none of that really bothered me, I guess, too much. I'd say that generally speaking, 2 is considered the lowest of them, but I think the combat in that game is just amazing. But it's also extremely complex. 1 and 3 are definitely more approachable, but the only thing is, like, especially with the DLC for 3, like these games all take place in the same universe. It is one continuous story. I think you could play 1 and 2 in either order, but I do think that you lose a little bit not playing the first 2 before you play 3. In particular, the DLC for 3, which really feels like a culmination of the series. It pulls characters back in from 1 and 2. So I think you could jump in anywhere, but personally, if I were you, the jumping in point for me would be the first Xenoblade. It's also the simplest from a combat perspective. It's going to feel like a step back if you like start with 3, for example, or even 2. So that's just my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, both of those things really appeal to me. And as somebody who's, although I'm not up to date yet, as somebody who's a huge fan of Trails, one of the big things about it, of course, is that continuing plotline that I find very, very appealing. Again, to bringing the old love of fantasy literature and long form stories in general. I really love that we can do that in video games, and the fact that Xenoblade's doing that as well is just magnificent. And for your suggestion of where to start, I feel like I'm a bit like I've heard Mike talk about this our editor before, that that I'm kind of like that. I need to do things in order anyway. So I think I probably would start there. I'd feel horrible if I missed out on any story links or anything like that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the stories in Xenoblade much better than the Kiseki games, in my opinion.
Ooh.
So, but I'm sort of like a Kiseki whatever person. So, yeah.
Like I'm like you and like Mike, Paul, where like I need to play everything. Like I need to experience the story from the start, and I get like kind of FOMO of like, can I call myself like a gamer if I don't play like every single thing? But I think gaming is like hitting that age where it's like the amount of must play games now stretches back like, let's say 30, 40 years, right? And so like the body of must play games is becoming like bigger and bigger, and like they're remaking it occasionally enough that it's like, okay, like it stays in the public consciousness, like the zeitgeist. Whereas like movies and music and things like that, it's just like nobody is like what, you haven't listened to Cole Porter, like what are you like, no one really cares. But I had a bad experience.
You're obviously not on film Twitter, because there are some
No.
people who are like, you haven't seen Vertigo, you don't get to have an opinion about anything. Like, okay.
I was publicly shamed when I was like 9 years old because I went to a family meeting, or like what do you call it, like a family get together meeting, and I said oh, I listened to this great song by a band, I don't know if you know them, Boston, and like they all just like laughed at me and mocked me, and I'm like, I'm 9, like in retrospect I'm 9, how do
Mm.
I, like, how would I know who Boston is? And who cares? Like
I mean,
so
culture takes about 20 years to reach Canada, so that makes sense anyway.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it on the
The,
radio.
the, that gives me a controversial, totally tangential opinion, but I do have on that phrase when everyone says, "Oh, we can spoil this game because it's like 10 years old." I'm like, what about the 9-year-old who hasn't necessarily played the game yet? They don't necessarily. They weren't born when the game released. So yeah, we should be cautious with these things. That's completely tangential. Sorry.
I get it though. I mean, my one of my classes, like of grade 5, the other day, they were writing letters to George Lucas, and none of them in Japan had seen Star Wars. And I'm like, go watch it, And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell them about Darth Vader. Like that's such an exciting thing to be like, wow, like someone might discover that for the first time in 2025.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty cool.
I will forgive you for the sin only because you intend to rectify it. Unlike some others who are like, I don't even feel bad about my sin.
Wasn't that you?
It
Yeah,
it
there's a
was
bit of projection
also
going on here.
There's been some like Final Fantasy 16 tension just floating in the air today.
No, I feel like every time I'm on a podcast, there's 16 energy. It's like floating out there. Like, is Zach going to bring it up again?
And he
I
will.
didn't this time.
And
it
he
was
will.
Matt.
You implied
I did
it
reference
earlier.
it.
Yeah.
I did imply it. That is true. Yes, you are correct. I forgot about that. Thank you, the three of you, so much for coming along to talk about our embarrassing gaps. But as you guys were just talking about, the reality is like I spend a lot of time playing video games. It's easy for me to do because my wife does it for a living. And so I sort of have that space, and I don't have any children. And I still have so many gaps in my video game knowledge, some of which I'm certain I will never fill. And sometimes people get all weird about it, and we're just here because we like it, and that's okay. So I absolve you of your sins. I assign 10 hayas and 2 building model airships to you. I don't know where I came up with that, but that just came out of my head. So here we go. So let's talk about what's coming up next. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to knock off one of my big sins, at least as a Yoko Taro enthusiast, or at least acclaimed Yoko Taro enthusiast. And that is that we are going to start Drakengard. Now, let me tell you, y'all, I'm not sure if any of the three of you have played Drakengard. I've played it for about half an hour. And the gameplay is just horrific. It's so bad. like there's like one button and it's so bad. But I'm gonna push through it because I want to see what Taro's doing. We're gonna have 2 episodes on Drakengard. I'm really excited just to talk about it, even if I think the gameplay is just pure garbage. I'm excited to dig into it. And then after that, we are going to have an episode looking at Yoko Taro, the creator, the auteur. So it's sort of continuing our auteur series. The creator of the Nier series, the Drakengard series. He's also worked on Voice of Cards. He's done a lot of stage plays. Taro's done some really weird stuff, which is not surprising to anyone who knows anything about Yoko Taro. I'm excited to dig into his oeuvre. I really liked the first episode that Matt was on about Sakaguchi. I think it's a cool series of ideas that Alex came up with originally. Mm-hmm. And then I can announce already the next game after that, and it is Trails of... Never mind, it's not Trails of. And I did that joke only because I want everybody who's listening to go to Apple Podcasts and look at one of the most recent reviews. And it says, it starts out with a fair and balanced review or something like that. And then they call us cowards for not playing enough Kiseki games. And I just want whoever that listener is, I just want you to know I see you, I hear you, and now I want to play a Trails game even less. The
game, you're just afraid of the shiny palms. That's all it is.
I've played Cold Steel 1 and 2. They were fine. I'm guessing I'll play the remake of FC, and in all sincerity, like I'll probably make, because FC was actually the very first game journal we ever had on Retro Encounter, and it feels like we can come back to that. But I can say that after the Yoko Taro, what we're actually going to play is Star Ocean 2, which is a game that I did play once upon a time, many years ago. And I'm sure most of us will end up playing the remake, but we don't have to. And that's going to be our next game journal after we talk about all things Yoko Taro for 6 weeks, which I'm very excited about. So if you want to get in touch with us and suggest that we play any game except for a Trails game, you can email us retro@rpgfan.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube. We're usually RPG Fan or RPG Fancom. We also have a Discord that you can join and you can chat with some of us. I will occasionally see DMs. I try to stay away from Discord. We also have a shop, actually 2 different shops. One hosted by TeePublic, where we sell t-shirts, mugs, things like that. Surprisingly high quality. I really like some of the t-shirts from there. So if you want to rep RPG Fan, feel free to grab something from there. And also support us. You can also support us by purchasing our very first review card collection. We're actually discussing maybe making a second one. But the first one is a collection of 300 of those review cards that you may have seen on Instagram. Looks very much like sort of one of those old video game magazines. It's very cool, not just because my name is in it. We also have 2 other fine podcasts. One is Random Encounter, usually hosted by John O'Logan, usually about random events. For the most part, sort of the most recent games that have come out. A lot of the reviews, usually he pulls in the reviewers for those things. So if you want something more current, Random Encounter is a good place to go. We also have Rhythm Encounter, which is on the other Monday of every 2 weeks about RPG music. We just recently put out an episode of the sort of music from the second quarter of 2025. And disappointingly, there was only one Claire Obscure song on there when it should have been all 6. In all sincerity, it was a great episode. Mike and Hillary do an amazing job. So you can also review us, I guess, as long as don't talk about Trails, on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. You can find us anywhere there are podcasts. You can give us a review. We love feedback, at least the constructive kind. And let's talk about where you can find the individual panelists, starting with you, Matt.
Yeah, you can read my solo fiction writing at mattwardellwrites.wordpress.com. But on RPG Fan this week, I wrote 2 features that I'm pretty proud of. The first being a interview with Hiroki Kikuta, the composer of Secret of Mana and director of Kodelka, which we brought up today, the Shadow Hearts predecessor. And then more recently, my Tokyo tourism article where I took pictures of real life Tokyo places and screenshots of games that those places inspired. That was a lot of fun to write and to research. Yeah, so check that out.
I love the interview, of course, but I really love that Japan piece. It was it's something that is so unique, and it was just fantastic, and I just really enjoyed reading it. So you did a great job, Matt, as you always do.
Oh, thank you.
Except for when you don't play Dragon Quest. And Paul, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to talk to me about the acknowledged fact that Trails is the best series out there, then you can contact me. Just Paul Skevington on Blue Sky, and I still haven't accessed it too often, but I will try. I'm Lord Spiral on the RPG Fan Discord as well. So happy to have a chat with whoever wants.
Perfect. And Lucy.
Being the demon of RPG Fan, you can usually summon me by drawing a pentagram in blood on your latest console. Otherwise, you can find me on Blue Sky, Tumblr, and Discord as Jess Idris.
Perfect. And if you want to get in touch with me, that retro email is good. You can also email me, zachw@rpgfan.com, which is the more personal thing. But also, as I said earlier, I am on our Discord, and actually all RPG Fan communication is going to be switching to it soon enough, so I will be on Discord more often. Fortunately. And thank you, listeners. Good night, and good luck.